In February 1967, a small radio station deep in the West Virginia hills went off air in the middle of the night. No distress call, no warning, just silence. The next morning, the tower was gone. Only a crater remained where it once stood. But locals say the broadcast never stopped. If you tune your radio to the right frequency at 3:17 a.m., you'll still hear the final transmission. This is the true horror story of the lost radio station of 1967. They said the airwaves went dead that night. But static isn't silence. It's everything still speaking after we stop. And somewhere out there, beneath the hiss and hum, the signal still waits. This has been the Silent Screams. Stay tuned. Stay scared.
The tape shouldn't have existed, not after all these years. Yet there it was, buried under dust and mulching in a cardboard box marked WXBR Emergency Broadcast 1967. The handwriting was shaky, fading to a ghost of ink, but still legible. I found it while cataloging old radio archives for a Leeple Museum project, a forgotten relic from a station that, according to every record, vanished without a trace. WXBR had been a small AM channel nestled in the hills of West Virginia, its antenna rusting in the fog, its signal barely reaching the next town over. It was the kind of place where nothing ever happened until the night it did. On February 3rd, 1967, the station went off air during its late-night broadcast. No technical explanation, no sign of fire, no staff found, just silence. The next morning, listeners woke to static where their favorite talk show had been. The frequency was dead. The official report blamed a lightning strike, but when I asked the museum curator about the missing staff, he frowned. There weren't any, he said. The station was closed for repairs that week. Then what was recorded that night? I threaded the reel-to-reel machine, its gears squealing like old bones. The hiss of static filled the room, followed by a low hum. A man's voice broke through, trembling, terrified. "If anyone can hear this, don't come here." Then came a sound that made my stomach twist, a faint chorus of whispers beneath the static, rising and falling like breathing. The man's voice cracked once more. "It's not the storm, it's us." And then, dead air. The hiss of the tape filled the room like wind through broken glass. I leaned closer to the speaker, trying to catch the voice buried beneath the static. It was a man, trembling, desperate, breathing hard as if running. "If anyone can hear this, don't come here, don't answer it." His words fractured, dissolving into a metallic hum that grew louder until the whole room seemed to vibrate. The machine stuttered, reels spinning faster on their own. Then came a sound that froze my blood. Faint, but unmistakable. Screams. Dozens of them, overlapping, distant and near at once, as if the microphone were picking up another place entirely. Somewhere inside that chaos, the man's voice returned, weaker this time, whispering, It's calling. It wants to be heard. I stopped the tape. The machine clicked, whining softly. My hands shook, but curiosity burned hotter than fear. I rewound it, played it again, only this time the voice was different, slower, deeper. Don't rewind. The words weren't the same. They changed. I ripped the plug from the wall. Still, the reels turned for a few seconds more, spinning against nothing. The static pulsed rhythmically, like a heartbeat, and under it, something faint, almost like a whisper pressed between the frequencies. It said my name. I stumbled back, tripping over a box, my skin prickling with cold. The machine went silent again, but the silence wasn't empty anymore. It felt alive, breathing with the faint hum of old electricity. And from somewhere inside that dead air, the voice returned one last time, soft as a sigh. Now you've heard it too.
His name was Harold Cole, the last man alive who had worked at WXBR. I found him living in a nursing home 2 towns over, half blind, hands trembling from Parkinson's. But his memory, it was sharp, painfully so. He didn't speak much at first. When I told him I'd found the tape, his spoon froze halfway to his mouth. For a long time, he didn't blink. Then, quietly, he said, "You shouldn't have listened." He'd been the station's sound engineer, the one who ran the boards during night broadcasts. On February 3rd, 1967, a thunderstorm rolled through the valley, shaking the transmitter tower. Cole was alone, keeping the signal stable. At exactly 11:42 p.m., the monitors spiked. No static, no interference, just a new frequency bleeding into their own. He described it as a voice beneath the noise, faint and pleading, like someone speaking from inside the static. "I thought it was interference," he said, "until it started saying my name." The more he adjusted the dials, the clearer the voice became, until he realized it wasn't coming from another station. It was broadcasting from inside their own feed. He looked at the clock, 11:47. Then, the lights went out. Cole claimed he never made it to the exit. Something was in there with me," he whispered, "something using the airwaves." His eyes watered as he spoke, pupils shrinking to pinpricks. "You think radio carries sound? It carries everything, even what doesn't belong here." Before I left, I asked him what happened after the station went silent. He didn't answer. He just smiled weakly and said, "We never stopped transmitting."
Cole's story never left my head. The way he said it used the airwaves haunted me for days. I started combing through old FCC logs, looking for any anomalies that matched WXBR's final night. Buried deep in the microfilm archives, I found a single report dated February 4th, 1967. A complaint from a nearby county about unintelligible transmissions and human screaming heard on multiple frequencies between 11:45 p.m. and midnight. The signal had jumped across 3 channels that night, including emergency bands. When I called Cole to ask about it, he refused to speak at first. Then, after a long silence, he whispered, "It wanted to be heard. That's how it finds you."
He explained how the signal had shifted on its own, bleeding through frequencies like a living thing. At first, it repeated old broadcasts, songs, news reports, even the host's own voice from hours earlier. Then, the words began to change. The voices started saying their names, describing what they were doing in real time. It told us who would die first, Cole said, and it was right. He'd tried to cut power, but the generator kept running even after he pulled the plug. The static built into a rhythmic pulse that shook the equipment. Then the voices changed tone, no longer human, deeper, layered, as if hundreds spoke through one throat. It said, "We were here before sound." Cole looked down, his hands trembling. He said, "The airwaves don't end. We just learned how to listen to them." And that night, something else listened back. I asked what happened when the broadcast finally stopped. He blinked, eyes wet and distant. He said, "It didn't stop. It just switched stations."
It started with the storm. At 11:49 p.m., the sky over the valley went white. Thunder cracked so loud that nearby homes shook. According to the county logs, the power grid overloaded within seconds, plunging half the region into darkness. But in the sheriff's report, one strange note stood out. The only lights still visible during the outage were from the WXBR tower. Cole remembered the sound first, not thunder, but a deep hum vibrating through the floor. It wasn't power, he said, it was the signal. The static from the monitors rose in pitch until it became unbearable. The crew, 5 people that night, tried to shut everything down. The backup generator roared, the microphones crackled, and then every dial on the console turned red. Across the valley, listeners reported screams bleeding through the static on every frequency. Old transistor radios came alive in powerless homes, whispering voices that didn't match any known broadcast. One woman said she heard someone outside her window, whispering her name in perfect sync with the radio's pulse. Another caller claimed to hear children laughing through a dead receiver. Then, silence. At exactly 11:57 p.m., all sounds stopped. The signal vanished. The valley was plunged into complete quiet, the kind of silence that presses against your eardrums until it hurts. When morning came, the storm had passed. The tower should have been there, jutting from the hill like a steel needle. But where it once stood was a black crater, fused earth and melted glass. No debris, no remains. When investigators arrived, they found the control room intact, except for one thing. Every microphone was missing, and the tape machines were still running, recording nothing but dead air.
Cole wouldn't talk about the tapes at first. Every time I brought them up, his eyes would drift toward the window as if something might be listening. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely more than a breath. "There were 3 reels that night," he said. 3 recordings. Only one ever made it out. The official archives confirmed only a single tape survived, the one labeled Emergency Broadcast, but Cole swore the others existed. "One captured what we heard," he said. "The second recorded what we couldn't." He paused,
hand trembling over his teacup. And the third, that one recorded us after we were gone. I felt the room grow colder. What do you mean, after you were gone? He smiled weakly. It didn't stop recording when we disappeared. Someone or something kept the reels turning. He claimed the missing tapes were confiscated by a federal team the next morning, men in plain suits with no identification. They took everything, equipment, blueprints, logs. But when they left, the static didn't. He leaned forward. You ever wonder why static never stops, even when the power's out? That hiss? It's not empty. It's everything that's still talking after we go quiet. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a rusted spool of tape, unlabeled, warped with age. I took this before they came, he whispered. But don't play it at night. The voices get clearer then. As I left the nursing home, I looked back through the window. Cole sat staring at the wall, lips moving silently, like he was speaking to someone I couldn't see. When I got home that night, I found something waiting on my desk. The same spool of tape, still warm.
It began 3 nights later. I had left the spool on my desk, untouched, exactly where I'd found it. But at 3:17 a.m., the house filled with a faint, rhythmic hiss. At first, I thought it was rain, but the sky outside was clear. The sound grew louder, pulsing like breath through the walls. Then I realized it was coming from the radio on the shelf, an old analog set I hadn't used in years. Its dial glowed weakly, though it wasn't plugged in. The needle moved on its own, sliding across empty frequencies until it stopped on 10:40 a.m. Static bled through the speakers, soft and steady. Then something emerged beneath it, a voice, faint, distant, trembling. If anyone can hear this, my chest tightened. It was the same voice from the WXBR tape, the same terrified man whispering through time. Don't come here, it's still on. Then another voice joined in, younger, female, crying, please turn it off. The radio crackled violently, the signal twisted, words overlapping until they became a single distorted hum that filled the room. For a moment, I thought I heard music, a faint jazz tune from the 60s, warbling under layers of static. Then the melody broke apart into laughter. I lunged forward and ripped the cord from the wall, but the sound didn't stop. The radio kept playing, the dial spinning backward, faster and faster, until every frequency blurred into one continuous tone. Then, silence. The glow faded, the hum stopped. I turned away, shaking. And the radio whispered behind me. Next broadcast, live.
The road to WXBR was little more than a scar carved through the hills. The trees leaned in on both sides, their branches heavy with frost. My recorder sat in the passenger seat, its red light blinking softly, capturing every bump of gravel under the tires. By the time I reached the hilltop, fog had swallowed the tower's ruins completely. The crater from the 1967 collapse was still there, black earth hardened like volcanic glass. The air buzzed faintly, like electricity trapped in the mist. I set the recorder down and walked toward the crater's edge. The soil under my boots vibrated. My radio, still in my pocket, crackled, even though it was off. I heard a voice, distant, faint, bleeding through the static. Please, turn it off. My blood ran cold. I looked down at the recorder. The red light had stopped blinking. It was still recording, but the display showed a single word flashing in its digital window.
live. Then, from somewhere below the earth came a faint rhythm like an old broadcast humming to life. It started soft, static, then faint laughter, and then the same trembling voice I'd heard on the first tape. "We never stopped listening. You just stopped listening." The fog around me pulsed with light, as though something deep underground had opened its eyes. My recorder emitted a piercing tone that made me drop to my knees. And then, silence. When I stumbled back to my car, the engine was already running. The radio was on, dial frozen at 10:40 a.m. The same voice whispered through the static, quieter now, almost gentle. "Thank you for bringing us back on air." That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound in the house felt amplified. The hum of the refrigerator, the wind against the windows, the faint ticking of the clock that never seemed to move. I told myself the recording from the hill was just feedback, a trick of the mind. But at 11:47 p.m., the exact time WXBR had gone off the air, my phone lit up by itself. The screen flickered, glitched, then displayed 3 words in white text over a black background. "Now you hear." Before I could react, the speakers in my living room came to life, static, a low hum, and then the voice. That same trembling broadcast I'd listened to 100 times. Only this time, it wasn't distant, it was inside the room. "We can see you," it said. The lights flickered. The static rose to a scream, distorting into layers of voices, male, female, childlike, all speaking at once. Words I couldn't understand, overlapping until one cut through the chaos. "Look behind you." I turned. The reflection in the dark TV screen showed someone standing just behind my chair, a shadow, tall and thin, its outline pulsing with faint static, like a signal trying to form. I blinked, and it was gone. The radio dial spun wildly, settling back on 10:40 a.m. Through the hiss, the same man's voice spoke, broken but determined. "Final broadcast, going live." Every screen in the house flickered on, my laptop, the TV, even my phone, all displaying the same trembling image. The WXBR logo, its letters burned and reversed. Then, through the speakers, the voice whispered one last phrase, low and trembling. "Don't change the station." And everything went black. It's been weeks since the night of the broadcast, but the static never left. It hides in the silence, beneath the hum of streetlights, inside the pause between breaths. I smashed every radio in the house, cut the power, even moved across the state. None of it mattered. The signal always finds me, sometimes through a wall socket, sometimes through the soft buzz in my ears before sleep. When I close my eyes, I still hear it, the faint click of a microphone turning on. Then the familiar voice, softer now, almost kind. "Welcome back, Harold." That name doesn't belong to me. The doctors say it's stress, auditory hallucinations brought on by overexposure to white noise. But every time they play their test tones, I hear words inside them. Whispers layered between frequencies. They're waiting, listening, rehearsing. I checked my recorder again. The last file I made, the one from the crater, won't delete.
The timestamp resets to February 3rd, 1967, no matter what I do. When I press play, I don't hear the wind or static anymore. I hear breathing, close, steady, human. Then a voice, my voice, says, "We're live." The room fills with the same low hum that started it all. The lights flicker, once, twice, then steady. I look toward the corner, and for a moment I swear I see the faint red glow of an on-air sign bleeding through the darkness. The microphone on my desk crackles. A faint whisper crawls through the static. Your turn. And then the reel begins to spin.